Morning, Jerry. Jo, you should be unmuted now.
Yes, I am. Yes, that's.
Okay, I started with everybody muted.
Yeah.
And just for the first few minutes, I'm going to let a few people in, but not many. I'm going to let Jeremy in next. Hopefully he'll be here soon, and he's going to act as backup host. So can you just say a few words? We just check your volume is good, or you're close enough to your...
That's why I thought I'd check in early just to make sure that everything was okay from this end.
Okay, I can hear you pretty well.
Right. Okay. Good.
So you in good form this morning?
Yeah. Yes. Good. And you?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a shock when the sound system packed up yesterday.
So it's working again now, yeah?
Well, it is. It's not working as well as it used to, but I think that's a different problem. I think I tried to fix it and managed to turn it off, which wasn't helpful.
Yeah.
So I immediately rang up Jeremy and said, "Will you act as backup?" And he said, "Yeah, fine." Yeah. Right. Oh, we've got David Riv as well.
Let me just try a bit more light and see if that's
okay.
I'm not sure if light's good. Is that lights? Yeah, a bit better, a bit more light.
Jerry, I don't know whether you can hear me. Jerry's joined the meeting, but he's not got his video on.
No, so. Mine looks like I can see he's trying to join, but it's struggling to connect for some reason.
Yeah, he's... Okay, we've got 3 and we've got 2 more waiting outside at the moment. They'll have to stay there, sadly.
So have you learned to use Zoom just during this period, or did you use it before?
Yeah.
I think we're all getting very good at it, aren't we?
Yeah, about a week before Easter. And
Yeah.
then we did put some Easter. We've done 2 prayer meetings and
Good.
3 Easter services at St Michael's. But we've also, people are just using it for social stuff as well. So
yeah,
that helps because it
does.
means we don't have to train everybody to get on. And we were fortunate. We're just over half the people we know are able to get on, and the rest we just haven't heard from. But I can see a couple that we haven't heard from that are in the waiting room at the moment. So, you know, with any luck, we'll have 20 or 30 this morning.
Wow,
that would be
good.
nice, I think.
That's definitely the biggest one I've been involved with. So well done.
Well, we had 70 for Easter Sunday, which was nice. That was good. Yeah, no, very pleased with that. But we're kind of trying to figure out what to do next with it.
Yes, I know. It's a lot cleverer than I realised. My daughter was on a call yesterday with her work colleagues. My son-in-law, who lives with us, managed to put the background of the pub they normally meet at, so it looked like she was in the pub.
I thought about doing that this morning, but you know, if it goes wrong, you look pretty stupid. So I'm probably going to look pretty stupid at some point anyway. So you know,
just doing our best, aren't we?
We'll see. Oh, Andrew Marsh has made it. Good. Okay. Yeah, some people I think are a bit low on basic IT skills. You know, they get very nervous when you send them anything like this, and their first reaction is, "Oh, I don't think I could do that." But in fairness, a lot of people, we've had quite a number of people in their 70s and 80s who came onto the Easter Sunday thing in particular. And I was just amazed. I just think it's wonderful.
No, it is. I think a lot of people are learning new skills like this, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I had to learn how to edit the videos after we
yes,
did that. Yeah.
Just going to close the door, make sure the dogs don't come.
I'm now thinking about virtual choir.
Oh my God! Oh yeah, there's some good ones been on the TV.
Come on, Jeremy, where are you? I want to get you in.
Yeah, Jerry's still not in, is he?
Or... No, he's not. I can...
Unless he's walked away from his computer, I don't know.
Maybe. I can just WhatsApp him quickly. I can find him. Right. I was hoping Jeremy would have turned up by now because I'd like to unmute him before I let anyone else in. There's a panel up the side which has got all the participants, and I can change their settings.
Yeah. Oh,
the problem is unless what happens is that the people move around on the panel. So you're looking for someone and you go to click on them and they move.
Yeah, I think it seems to cue people according to the one that seems to speak the most.
That's what it does. It moves them up to the top.
Yeah.
So I found I was spotlighting the wrong people.
Yeah, okay, yes. Yeah. Accidentally, yeah.
Normally we have a few jokes from Colin, by the way. And,
yes, I know, yes.
No. So I got it covered.
You've got it covered, good.
But Colin actually sent me a couple of very short video clips, which we will try and play.
Okay,
They're only
brilliant.
2 minutes, and the other one is less than a minute. So we'll do those sort of right at the end of the admin stuff and just before you come in.
Okay.
There's only sort of light humorous stuff, and it's better than his jokes.
Well, I was going to say his jokes are normally pretty bad.
They are, yes.
We love him for it, but yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it wouldn't be the same without Colin, would it?
No, he's done such a good job of the food bank, bless him. I think.
Has he?
And we've created an outside food bank for collections because they're so
Yes.
desperate. And obviously, once we closed the church, and he's been, he was worried about foxes, so he attached these boxes to tables. Then he put a sunscreen, and then a windscreen, and then a rain screen, and then he's now moved units in. I'm just waiting for the kitchen sink to arrive. And then I said to my husband, one of these days, I expect to turn up and find him sitting there in an armchair.
Excuse me for a second.
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, Jeremy.
Jeremy, hi.
I'm waiting for you to let me in.
Are you? Oh, hang on. We've got... Oh, right. I couldn't see you on the screen, Jeremy. No. Hang on. I can't... Oh, Jeremy Webb, there you are. Okay, I'm going to let you in, and then I'm going to unmute you, and then I'm going to let everybody else in. I think.
Okay.
Okay. I've got Joe on at the moment. Hi, Jeremy.
Hi.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Right, let me just find you and unmute you. It's a bit slow coming up with the... I'm going to make you a co-host. Do that. Oh. Hang on, I've got... Oh, it's moved. It moved. I almost made the wrong person a co-host. Jeremy, can you speak so we can hear you? Just say a few words.
I can't hear anything.
No, hang on. You should be unmuted. Is your sound on?
I don't think it is.
Okay, I'm gonna. Can you speak? Can you hear me, Jeremy? Doesn't look as if he
No,
can.
I don't think you can.
Okay. Let's just try doing that. All that stuff. Well, unmuting. Unmuting. Speak to me, Jeremy.
Yeah, I've got.
Yeah, I think I tried to make you a host and then unmute you, and it didn't like that. So
Okay.
I unmuted you and then made you a host, and that seemed to work. Okay,
All right.
we've got 19 people waiting outside,
Wow.
Really good.
so that's not bad, is it?
No.
So I think we'll wait for one more minute for form's sake, and then I'll admit everybody,
Righto.
because then we'll have started on time for once.
No delay with the toast this time, you see.
Well,
I'm
that's
sorry, Joe.
yeah. You know where the delay comes from. It's not the toast. Getting the bread in. We all know who that's down to. Anyway,
Oh
let's
yes.
not-
Oh yes.
no more of this. No more of
Yes.
this nastiness.
It's either that or he's delaying to find the jokes.
Oh no.
And I know
They're
we
prepared
really
weeks in
without,
advance.
but
Okay, I'm going to let everybody in now.
okay.
Ah.
Okay. Well, here is a sight for sore eyes. Good to see so many people on. There's a couple of people who haven't yet turned on their
Video.
video. Thank you, Jeremy. That's the word I was looking for. Peter, Martin O'Donovan and Peter Waterhouse. If you want to turn your video on, now's as good a time as any, so we can see you. I would just say we are actually recording this session. So if people don't want to turn their video on or even want to turn their video off, that is fine. And I've got a message from Jerry, Joe. He's just getting his cup of tea. And an Irishman without a cup of tea is not a happy Irishman, I can tell you that. Okay.
Obviously, you didn't set the alarm early enough.
We're now up to 26, which I think is pretty good because our mailing list is just under 50. Oh, hang on. I've got to keep an eye on this because people are going to be coming in all the time in ones and twos now, and I have to keep admitting them. I think we'll make a start. We've got a few things to say. Firstly, thank you all for taking the time and trouble to overcome the technical barriers to join us this morning. If you'd asked me 3 or 4 weeks ago where I'd be this morning, of course I would have said men's breakfast. But of course, to paraphrase Dr. McCoy, this is men's breakfast, but not as we know it, Jim. So we live in strange times. I've got a couple of admin points I wanted to just start with. Firstly, I'm going to introduce Jeremy as a co-host. Everybody probably knows Jeremy Webb. Sorry, tongue in mouth syndrome. Jeremy, can you just raise a hand just so that everybody can see you, just so that anybody who doesn't know you can see you? That's fine. Yesterday I had a panic. I often have panics, but I had a particular one yesterday because my PC lost its sound. And I thought, who can I ask to co-host with me just in case the worst happens and my PC falls over completely? And I immediately thought of Jeremy, and Jeremy kindly agreed to act as co-host. So if suddenly the voice of the host changes dramatically, that's the reason. It's because I've probably gone off the air. What else are we going to say? I think you'll find we've muted your microphones, at least we tried to, and we did that really to avoid the distraction of background noise while Joe is speaking. But we're going to try and do questions as we go along, and we may do that by unmuting individual people as they ask a question, or we may just decide it's easier to unmute everybody. So we might go back on that one. We'll just have to suck it and see. If you do have a question, please raise your hand. And you can do this by clicking on the reactions button at the bottom of the screen. So down, you'll see a row of buttons on the bottom of the screen. Those of you who are on PCs. Those of you who are on iPads, I'm not sure exactly what you're going to see, but if you see something labeled reactions, if you click on it, there's two little hand symbols. One of them is a hand raised, and another one is, let me have a look, something else. A thumbs up. Okay, so if you raise a hand, we'll understand that as, oh, well done. John Flood has managed to raise both his hands, I think. Or is that me doing that? Oh, that's me doing that. It just happens to be where John Flood is sitting. So it looks as if it was John Flood doing it. Okay, so let's have a little trial of that just to make sure everybody knows how to raise their hands. So I've got a question for you. Who has had bacon for breakfast this morning? No, you've got to raise it. Michael, you've got to raise your hand with the button. Use the button. So Howard Parker's had, and he's got one with him. Who else have we got? Let me just go. Yes, John Flood, Rupert. Yeah. Okay, so we've got 3 or 4. So the next question is, did you bring enough for all of us? Oh, okay, all right. Now we're almost done with the. I'm almost done with the admin stuff. just a quick reminder, if you need to adjust your sound settings, if you can't hear us properly, again, if you go down to the bottom of the screen, there's a little microphone with the word mute next to it, and a little up arrow, a little chevron. And if you click on the chevron, you'll see there's, at the bottom of the list, there's a thing called audio settings. And if you click on audio settings, a big white panel comes up with sliders on it that allows you to adjust your settings. I would suggest you only do that if you have to, because generally speaking, the sound is normalized, and there's a clever thing that Zoom does to try and make sure everybody's volume is okay for speech. So hopefully that should be okay. Yeah, the default settings seem to work quite well. Now, I don't know whether or not is Colin on. Yeah, Colin is.
Yeah, we have.
Men's breakfast obviously wouldn't be the same without Colin. But sadly, for some reason, his mute button seems to have got stuck. But he did send me, as an alternative, he did send me a couple of short video clips. And I'm going to take my life in my hands now and actually try and share these with you. They are short, so please bear with me. And you know, I think they're a nice reflection of the times we live in. Okay, so where is? Right. Okay, let me just move a few things around.
Rise in small businesses, as all the entrepreneurs have known stillness and routine. And all the children remember nothing but the time when all the moms and dads were born joy and born ballrooms, and we remember it as the time we all got struck at being present. We will remember the time our head was our first priority. We will learn new ways to use fresh produce to feed the planet. We remember the laughter and fun on TikTok, FaceTime with our friends and family each day, date nights in the house, and home video workouts with Joe Sherring. A time our real heroes in the NHS urged us to stay home for the greater good, and our country showing their support by turning Wembley and the England and North blue. And we were all forced to think outside the box and dream of new things and leaning on old ways, and for once, even amongst the chaos, there was community. There was a global rise in togetherness, and as the streets were quiet, our homes were bustle, love, and laughter. That time is coming soon, just like any other time before. This will all be a distant memory, and things we listen to our children discuss and answer. The once was that we shared with our grandchildren. So to you, I know it's unsettling, but focus on the silver lining. We're all in this together. And I'm so happy.
And I have a short second one, an even shorter second one to show you, if I can. Okay, so I think you'll all agree that's probably better than a couple of jokes from Colin. The last one I think was intended really as just a little bit of output from Colin Taylor Enterprises. It's I think actually an investment opportunity. So any of you are interested in that, following it up, then please speak to Colin afterwards. Do speak to Colin afterwards. Hang on, I've still got something playing in the background, I think. Yeah. I think, you know, if the trials go well, they're planning to have those in production in about 18 months' time. Okay, that's it from me. I'm just going to, if I can find him on this side panel, I'm going to hand over to, I hope this is the right Ian. Is it Ian Grimston? Can you just say a word, please?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Would you like to just give us an initial blessing, please, on proceedings, Ian?
Okay. Right, let us pray. Father God, we give you thanks at this difficult time that we're able to meet in this way, albeit without the bacon butties. With the pandemic in mind, we pause to pray for the most vulnerable in our society and for the medical staff and others in the front line of care and those maintaining essential services. Lord, please protect and sustain them and give our government great wisdom in planning for a return to more normal life. And Lord, we thank you now for Jo Sherring, who's bravely agreed to give her presentation on the Syrian Family Project via Zoom. We ask that you would greatly bless Jo and us in our time together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, and I think with that, again, if I can just find Jo on the side panel. I'm just going to spotlight her so that your view may hopefully will change to one of Jo mainly. There we are. Jo, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know if there is a history book of men's breakfasts, but I'm quite honoured to be maybe the only one that spoke virtually at men's breakfast. So yeah, I can't believe the number of people. I was expecting a sort of half a dozen or so a little bit overawed with the number of people that checked
29.
29, oh my goodness. So yeah, I'm very aware that some of you know quite a lot of the background to this project, and also I did an update which I think was sent around to everybody. So if you've read that, but I don't want to keep repeating things you might already know. So I'll skim through. This is, for me, to give you a quick bit of background, you know, and the reality of making the project go live and the family arriving, and give you a bit of information about that. But as much as anything, it's a question opportunity, so you guys can, you know, it's the sort of thing that I think does prompt questions. So it's very much about when we get to the point, if you have a question, as Bill said, you can get your virtual hand, or Bill, if you see a real hand, then let's jump in and answer questions as we go if people have them. I was looking through the file. You know, you create a folder on your computer for everything. The Ashtead Churches Community Trust folder is quite a big one now, and it goes back, in fact, to 2017, which is when we started talking about what we as churches and a community could do during this refugee crisis. And if you think back, the crisis really hit the public domain back in 2015, when that little boy was seen dead on a beach, and that sort of created a reaction from our government, and they founded this Syrian Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme. The scheme was set to run for 5 years from 2015 and would resettle up to 20,000 individuals from the countries bordering Syria. So the settlement plan was for refugees outside of the borders, but ones that were in those surrounding countries. The idea was to deter people from trying to make a journey themselves and to target those families that were probably less able to finance moving on to somewhere else. And within that scheme initially, that was the idea, was that councils would welcome families in and get funding to do that. And around that same time, church leaders approached our Home Secretary then, who was Theresa May, and said, what can we do as church leaders within, you know, to help assist in this programme? And they took along the idea of the Canadian model for community sponsorship. And the Canadian model started in the 70s with Vietnamese boat people. And it's a very well-established model in Canada that large communities, and particularly large church communities, some of them will take a family in every year. They have big commitments to refugee resettlement there. So that was the start of the scheme. So we became aware of the scheme. We'd had a number of people in the various churches who were thinking, what can we do? You see the pictures, something that you think, what can I as an individual do, and what can we as churches do? So when we came across the community sponsorship scheme, in fact, the first family to come through that scheme was welcomed at Lambeth Palace by the Archbishop of Canterbury. So we had a good leader, somebody to follow. We were mentored by the Salvation Army in Merton. They were a great help to us. So the things we had to do to become a community sponsorship group was we had to have a charity, we had to have £9,000 raised and in the bank, we had to have a property, and we had to have a resettlement plan. And I spoke to Men's Breakfast a few years ago, I think when we were still in that planning process. The charity we decided to reformat was the Ashtead Churches Community Trust, which had previously funded the youth worker in Ashtead. That took a little while to get the objectives of the charity changed. In fact, I think it took about 8 months. Ian was very, very patient over that time. The £9,000, thankfully, we raised. Our biggest worry was always over the property, trying to find an affordable property for a family in Ashtead, we knew would be a big challenge. But amazingly, as we started to have meetings about possible solutions, we were approached by a lady who has a big commitment to supporting refugees. She was selling a very large property in Ashtead, and she had some spare cash. So she was warmly welcomed, and we were able to help with her find a suitable property. And actually that property has now obviously a very, very sympathetic landlady who's very committed to what we're doing. The money was raised. The resettlement plan was quite onerous, to be honest. You have to imagine, and you don't know what family you're going to get at that point. So you have to draw up a plan that shows that you as a group are able to manage whatever that family may bring with them. So that is from when they first arrive, settling them into the home, setting up bank accounts, access to benefits, you know, knowledge of how that works, access to schools, helping with trauma they might bring with them, helping with medical issues. So yes, a lot of safeguarding policies had to be written. So that was all done and submitted to the Home Office. We actually got our approval from the Home Office in April of 2019. And having got the approval as a sponsorship group, it moved quite quickly. What the Home Office do is once you're approved, they then identify a family that would be suitable for you as a group, your setting, whether it's urban or rural, the property, most importantly, one that the property had to be viewed by Mole Valley and had to be seen as appropriate. And they would say how many children per room and what the maximum occupancy was. And the way the Home Office work is they get lists of families from the United Nations. So the United Nations, who are in situ in the surrounding countries to Syria, will identify families and they will send lists to the Home Office. So the Home Office then, when an applicant like us is approved, will look at that list and say, who do we have that's a match? And you are sent the details of a family, and you have 5 days in which to respond. So that required a few of us to meet, discuss the family details. You go back to the Home Office and say yes or no. In fact, the first family we had to say no to because they hadn't checked the property details carefully enough and the ages of the children weren't correct. So we got offered a second family. They looked suitable for us. We went back and said yes. The family then have an opportunity to see your details. So we'd done a crib sheet about Ashtead, about who we were, about the churches together, and the family saw those details and they approved us. So it was a match. You then go through this quite nerve-wracking process because they're trying to arrange travel. And it's a big deal. The families that are being resettled at the moment have all been displaced for at least 5 years. So they're living as refugees in countries bordering Syria where they have a refugee status. Refugee status means you can't work, you have no access normally to healthcare, you live on UN support, and normally the families find some black market work that they can hopefully supplement their income with, but it's all illegal and there's no right to stay there. And the families that are on those lists have no viable alternative other than resettlement. So they can't return home, they can't settle where they are. The resettlement is what is decided is the only viable alternative. So our family arrived on June the 13th last year. Myself and a couple of Arabic speakers went to meet them at the airport. It's all a long process. It takes a long time for them to get through the airport. They have so many checks they have before they come through. We had a minibus full of all their luggage. We brought them back and settled them into their property. Don't think anything can prepare you for the emotions that family are going through when they arrive. I bumped into somebody during that week who said, oh, do they know how lucky they are? And I had to stop and think, the tears I had seen and what I was dealing with did not look like a family who felt lucky. And I think I can only describe it as the shock of arriving to somewhere that is completely different to what they're used to. And the loss that they experience is huge. The loss of their country, the loss of their culture, the loss of their family. Often where they're displaced, they may have extended family with them. And often they've left behind elderly relatives. In Syria, an elderly person is not considered a threat, so they've often been left behind in communities there. So they come here with they're also not allowed to return to that region for at least 5 years. So we have families in the area who have terminally sick grandparents in bordering countries and in Syria who know they will never see them again. So it's a massive thing for them to come here. So that first week was a lot of crying around Ashtead. So yeah, I'm a good crier, so yeah, I was able to support in that department. They arrived, they have 3 children that at that stage 7, 5 and 18 months. They arrived on the Thursday. We'd already primed their school places, so we had acceptance from Barnet Wood that the 2 older kids could start. On the Monday, Mrs. Penny, the head of Barnet Wood, did a show round for the children. The older one was just, the 7-year-old is the most delightful girl. She's hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for structure. That she was just so excited. The 5-year-old boy was terrified. He'd never said, he just absolutely, the prospect of all of these children who didn't speak his language was just massive. He hid behind his mum's legs most of the time, but Mrs. Penny was brilliant. So they started and they did their first full day at school on the Tuesday after landing on the Thursday. And I had my phone in my hand the whole day waiting for the call to say, you need to pick them up, you know, they're not coping. And they did a full day at school. And there wasn't one day after that where we had a problem. They were just loving the structure, loving learning, loving being with other children. But they absolutely devastated then when 5-6 weeks later the schools closed for summer holidays. They were literally, the little boy at one point tried to break the gate down. We passed Barnet Wood as we were walking to the shops, and he thought he saw somebody inside, and he rattled the gate and said to his mum, "There's people in there, let me in." So they've settled brilliantly into schools. The 7-year-old moved up to Greville in September. But both those schools, they didn't sign up for this. They weren't part of the process, the planning, but they have been amazing in the resources they've put into helping the family. Mum and Dad had to wait till September before they started college. And then with a fantastic group of volunteers that have come forward from our church, from our community, non-church members, and from other churches as well. We managed to do 5 days a week English for mum and dad, just an hour a day during the whole of the summer holidays. So we were able to get them started and do some play activities for the kids, all through volunteer support. So we're now coming up for a year. We did a six-month celebration in January, which we did at a little party at St George's, which they really appreciated. We're coming up for a year that they've been here. Mum's English is amazing. Mum did study some English at university. She'd never spoken it, never written it, but she studied English literature at university, so she had a knowledge that was a base to call on. Dad's doing okay. They all struggle. It's a new alphabet and it's a brand new language. There aren't full-time courses available, sadly. So they do 6 hours a week at college, and we supplement that with volunteer support as well. He's very, very attached to his allotment currently, because obviously college is closed, and we signed him up for allotment quite quickly. Mum passed her driving theory test on the first take, just before lockdown. And sadly, she just started her driving lessons, but has had to stop those. She's devastated about that. And our commitment to the family is a 2-year commitment. So we, as a group, as a core group of people, are committed for a 2-year period to be there to support them. They have settled in so well. They have lots of English friends, which has really helped them, improve their English. The kids went to holiday club at St George's over the summer. I know Andrew always takes them to Messy Church when he has it at the Baptist Church. In fact, I was invited for dinner by the family, and I went, and the 2 older children weren't there. And I said, well, where are the children? Oh, sorry, we forgot it was Messy Church. So they'll be back later. So yeah, they go to, the little girl goes to Brownies, she goes to ballet, the little boy's doing football. We are helping them with swimming lessons, which we think is an essential life skill. And basically it's their life, and it's their right to make choices. They now have learned how our system works. They're getting to learn our culture. So they're making good friends. So our role now is very much supporting their choices. If anything, they're more resilient than us. So who are we to decide the way they choose to live? I think driving and getting a car will be a big thing for them. Currently, obviously, they have to rely on buses and things to go and do their shopping. But yes, from a personal point of view, I cannot, the list of the ways that God has stepped out in this, for me, the doors have opened so many times. The volunteers that have come forward, I've been absolutely blown away by the number of people that wanted to support the family. I think it's helped us create some really strong church connections within schools and with other organisations and other people that we didn't know before. And it's just been a blessing to our community, I feel. There's so many people that have interacted with the family that have said very positive things about what we're doing. And it's, to me, it may just be one family, but it's what we live in a beautiful place. And it was one thing we could share. We could say, come and, you know, to this family, be part of all of the blessings that we have, share those with us, and we have this wonderful church community. If we need help, we have probably about 1,000 people we can call on, and that for a family is what they don't have. They don't have networks and connections when they arrive, and we're able to provide that for them. And yeah, lockdown's been really hard. I work with other Syrian families. The first week or two of the crisis, when they saw shortages of food, and they really panicked. This was their safe place, and it's brought flashbacks. They've got extended family in countries where they're very, very concerned about them. The rumour coming out of Syria is that if you turn up at a hospital and they think you have coronavirus, that you will be given a lethal injection. It may be true, it may not. That's what they believe. So they're deeply worried about extended family. One of the families has a grandmother who's having cancer treatment. That's had to stop. So for them, it's been a really tough time. Probably, you know, it is for all of us, but for them, the most important thing is that the volunteers have kept in touch. We have Skype on the laptop now, and I think that the first week or two when we were all sorting our lives, they felt everybody left them. But now through Skype and through phone calls, all the volunteers are keeping in touch, are helping with English lessons, are helping the kids with schoolwork. And I think now they're feeling like yes, they're back in touch with everyone they know and they've got to love, and they're feeling well supported. Yeah, so it's just been a wonderful. I mean, I'll just give you one example of how I've seen God deliver, and that was one of the challenges you have is normally the family arrive with no medical assistance for maybe 5 or 6 years, so a lot of doctor's appointments are needed. So I spoke before they arrived. I approached Alison Anderson and said, "We know this is the situation. Family are arriving, and obviously we will get translators that can come to the doctors with them." And at that point, Alison said, "But we have an Arabic-speaking doctor." And I just couldn't believe that in Ashtead we had an Arabic-speaking doctor. And not only that, but he worked in Crawley and he'd welcomed other Syrian families. So we had instant access to, I mean, it's a bit like private help. They were very spoilt. Anytime we needed to, we could phone and get access to him. And he just was amazing for the first 6 months the family were here. And that has just been, so as I said, there's been so many ways that I really feel that God has blessed us in this process. So yeah, that's open to questions, I think, now, if anyone has any. Questions, I think either a virtual hand or a real hand. Will a real hand do, Bill?
Yes, sorry, I forgot to unmute myself, Jo. So do we have any questions? I need to just scroll backwards and forwards here.
Teddy's just put his hand up.
Oh, I see. Teddy Topman has a question. Let me just see whether I can unmute you, Teddy. Teddy, you should now be free to speak.
Unmuted. Thanks very much, Bill. Yes, Jo. I'm interested to know what happens after the 2-year period. You say you support them for 2 years in the house and the family. Is the idea that they then become independent and perhaps get self-sustaining employment and stuff here? Or would you necessarily, if it was necessary, carry on supporting that family in the way that you do at the moment?
Yeah, the part of the process we had to do is write a transition plan for 2 years plus. I mean, I'm very hopeful. This family are pretty independent now in terms of day to day. I still help with forms and paperwork. But obviously, if after 2 years they still need support, they will be supported. You know, we're not saying that it's 2 years and that's it. We are giving them some financial support at the moment because they were subject to the benefit cap. And the benefit cap is quite brutal. That you basically can only receive a certain amount of money, and there's no way that as a family they could afford to live on that. So we are giving them some financial support each month until Dad can get into full-time work. But yes, certainly 2 years plus. And I mean, they have become friends as well. I very much see that they will remain friends and part of the community for a long time, and we will keep supporting them in whichever way we can.
Is the paperwork such that they are entitled to stay here as long as they wish?
They get 5 years leave to remain, and after the 5 years they can apply for indefinite leave to remain, but they can't do that until after the 5-year period. So they have no right to a British passport until after that if they get indefinite leave to remain, they could then apply to become a British citizen.
All right, thanks.
I just see we've got a question from Malcolm. Malcolm, I've just unmuted you. Would you care to give us your question, please?
Thanks very much, Jo. I just to flesh out the way forward. I think the benefit system, they're plugged into the universal credit system, aren't they? And that, at the moment, the DWP are only wanting them to remain engaged in the program to learn the language, but there will be a process and support to move forward to get them into the workplace over time, as and when they're deemed to be fit to seek work. So they'll be treated like any other UK citizen, won't they, really, in terms of the support for finding work and replacing, building on the income that the charity is offering, and eventually increasing that and improving their situation. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, definitely. Malcolm's been very good at supporting with his CAB hat on. He's very good at supporting the family with understanding, as best as any of us could understand, universal credit and all the other.
Well, learning. We're all learning, Jo. We're all learning. But I think there's some reassurance into the longer term that the charity is playing its part, but there are other agencies that will also play their part at the right time, isn't it? Yeah. Can I add a question on that in terms of their language skills, which were moving forward so fantastically, having lost the college access and whatever, and the children for that matter. Do you sense any backward step at all in the language, or?
Yeah, we're trying to get. It's quite difficult with the 3 children in the house for them to sit aside and have a lesson themselves. I think there's 3 tutors a week helping Dad through Skype. And with Mum, they're now getting college work sent through. It arrived yesterday, in fact. College are now sending work.
Right.
And I'm trying to plug them into Book and Baptist, do an English class on Tuesday, which they've moved to Zoom. So I'm trying to plug them in, but it very much, if the children have lessons that clash, then they have one laptop and it's quite noisy. So it's quite difficult for Mum and Dad to move forward. I think, sadly, Dad's not really natural on a laptop, but he's doing his best. But we're just trying to keep them moving in the right direction. Really, obviously praying that they can get back to college before the summer. We were given £1,700 from Surrey for the parents' education, and the original plan was from Easter to the summer that would fund Dad in full-time English. We were looking at one of the private colleges in Wimbledon, and with full-time English for sort of a couple of months, I think it would have got him ready for work. Yeah. But obviously that's now going to be put on the back burner. And the dilemma is always, he's desperate to work, but at the moment the best we would probably get would be maybe a kitchen porter job. And that gets you stuck. You're not going to learn English as a kitchen porter.
No.
And you get stuck in it when you're not able to ever fully support your family. And he's a bright man, so we want to get his English good enough that he can actually get a job that will, be a future, not a dead end job. Which, some of the families, they haven't got the education he has, and they have, a kitchen porter job is fine. They're very happy to work. But for him, I think it would be a shame if we didn't help him get the English to a point where he could access good work.
Jeremy, I see a finger raised. Are you about to ask a question?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Through my Rotary Club, we had a very, very tenuous engagement with a Syrian family in similar circumstances who were actually looked after by your equivalents in Elmbridge.
Yes, we were
Now,
close.
the bit that I would like to share from that story was that the husband's name, he was the breadwinner, he was a neurosurgeon, and none of his qualifications could easily be transferred here, as it were, and he started off with no English. And one of the things that he did with his children, he had a 8-year-old boy or whatever, who he would take to football, for children's football club. And standing next to somebody else, they're chatting about their boys. And he just happened to be standing next to a neurosurgeon from St. George's. And he got him in to, quotation marks, work experience there. And with his English, he's now working there. He's clearly not working as a top flight neurosurgeon.
No, he's not. No, I know him well. He's still volunteering there, yeah.
So it poses the question whether there is a way that, if one understands what the people were doing before, whether there is any means, and you talked about the reach through the community, of, if you like, tapping into the same sector, skill set, whatever, to help them make that transition back from not being able to do anything to perhaps being able to use the skills they already have to parlay themselves into work over time. Right? I just thought it was a fabulous story, and it has applications for everyone.
I know the man you're talking about, Jeremy. He's still volunteering. He's still not working, but he's still volunteering full time at St. George's. He has to pass those GMC exams, which they're all struggling. We've got 2 or 3 other doctors we know who are really struggling to get through. But he's busy, which is keeping him happy. He's a very bright guy. But yes, our dad, his background, he did 4.5 years at university studying agriculture in arid regions.
Ah,
welcome to rainy Ashton.
East Anglia comes to mind.
Southeast England.
Yeah. So he is actually doing some work. He got a small gardening job. I mean, it is easier at the moment that for his gardening, he does 2 or 3 hours a week.
Yes.
A guy with a big garden, and the guy actually gives money to the charity. It's just easier than make.
No, I understand.
At the moment, it's with universal credit. If he went as self-employed, we could end up with everything being, stopped. So that's getting him used, and he's he comes alive in a garden setting. So I've been given a couple of contacts at, is it Merriswood? I think is the...
Merriswood is the agricultural college, yes.
So when his English is of a level, I think he's ready, we will make a contact. I think he's 35. I think he just wants to work.
Yes.
I think he wants to go back to study. So I think the route would definitely, that's his obviously his skill and his passion. And so I would like to think that that's where he could, enter the workplace. And I say, you'd see him, he's such a grafter. I've picked him up a few times when he's been doing this gardening work, and there's no way he's leaving till he's finished the job in hand. I mean, I've sat in the car for 5 minutes sometimes when he hasn't finished this flower bed. So, I think when we get to that point, once we know that he's got solid English, we will probably reach out to the community to just try and get him engaged in his gardening work.
Would he be fairly close to Ashtead Park Garden Centre?
Yeah, I did reach out to them very early on, but sadly, because Mum really wants to work as well. So with 3 small children, they did offer him some volunteer work, but managing the school run.
Yes.
Say one of them's at college, so the other one has to manage. The little one's at nursery. They've got 3 different drop-offs, 3 different pickups. So it was just trying to find enough time. There was a few hours here, but then the little one finishes nursery at midday. So we just couldn't find it at the moment. I think we're just saying English is the priority. And as Malcolm said, the Job Centre have been really good. They've said, as long as you're engaging with English and you're engaging with the group, that's all we're asking of you. That's going to be your long-term future. So at the moment, we've got contacts in various places for when the time comes.
Right.
So we were hoping that would be sooner rather than later, but I'm still optimistic that hopefully by September he would be for something like that. Yeah.
Do we have any more questions for Jo? Any more hands? I can't see any more hands raised at the moment. Okay, I'd just like to ask Peter Stanyard to say a couple of words of thanks to Jo for coming to speak to us this morning. Peter.
Yes, if it were only a couple of words, it would be absolutely brilliant. But you never shut me up that quickly. Jo, congratulations on being the first presenter on Zoom at the men's breakfast. That's one for your CV. Just touching on CVs, it's one of the things I used to do when I had a proper job, and similarly, I could help with mapping qualifications. On several occasions, I was able to argue the case for recognition of qualifications from outside outside England. Actually, it's quite often the sort of English institutes that are difficult to deal with, but they with things being based on NVQs these days, the elements can be argued. Anyway, that's for later. I'm sure we would all want to ask God to bless their landlady that you mentioned right at the beginning, who procured the building for us. And thinking back, how fast you managed to move from your initial discussions through the bureaucracy to having them arrive on the 13th of June in last year and into school. I think it's also important to get across how much effort that the family themselves have made, and so on, and the other support that you've had. There was one story that I heard that you didn't mention, and you can confirm it or deny it, but Mum, part of her integration was to take part in the mothers' races on school sports day, which I think was a very great thing that you engineered, I think is the polite word. So Jo, thank you very much for a brilliant for a brilliant presentation, but for the brilliant efforts of people that you've been working with in what's been achieved. So God bless, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. That kind of finishes the formal proceedings for today. I'd like to add my thanks to Jo as well. I think it's been an interesting morning. And I'd like to just get, while we're still in practice mode, a quick show of hands for those who would be prepared to attend another one of these sessions, assuming we can persuade the rest of the speakers to do the same, be as brave as Jo and actually perform online. I see lots of hands going up, which is good. So in that case, I think the challenge then is for your committee to persuade the next three speakers probably, and we'll try and run as many of these events over the next 3 months. That'll take us out to July. We've got no meeting in August, so who knows what the situation is going to be come September. So thanks to everybody. I'm just going to unmute you all for a minute so that you can all say hello or goodbye or whatever you want to say. Okay, you're all unmuted now, so.
All right. I just want to say thanks to Bill for managing the technology, because I was a bit terrified, but all went well. Thank you, Bill.
Pleasure.
Well done, Bill. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Well done.
So until the next time then,
Thank you very
gentlemen.
much. Thank you.
Okay. Bye for now.
Cheers, then.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Bill.
Bye.
No, that was Bill O'Neill. Bill O'Neill. And earlier it was Peter Stanhope.